Our state is seeing the highest number of reported toxic shock syndrome cases, or TSS, in more than 10 years.
This is an issue we first told you about on Tuesday. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services reporting 5 suspected cases since July. In a health alert, Emily Riley joins us after talking to officials about why this is happening and how to prevent it. Emily.
Cami, in a typical year, state health officials tell us they see just 1, sometimes 0 cases of toxic shock syndrome. Because of this recent cluster of reported cases, experts are now trying to find out why the number is higher than usual. Dr. Ryan Westgard, the chief medical officer at the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Bureau of Communicable Diseases, says the department doesn't know exactly why so many cases have been reported since the summer.
That could just be to chance. It's a coincidence, or there could be some underlying causes. Maybe people are less aware of the risks associated with prolonged tampon use than they were in the past. So we're investigating that.
Toxic shock syndrome is caused by a toxin produced by bacteria. It's typically associated with tampon use in young women, but it can affect anyone of any age, including men and children. Health experts emphasize it can progress into complications like shock, organ failure, and even death. And it's important to recognize the symptoms.
We want people to understand the signs and symptoms of toxic shock syndrome, which are fever, low blood pressure, can be fainting, sometimes rash, and we want clinicians to be on the lookout for this as well.
Health officials also say, along with safe practices, make sure to be careful about which feminine hygiene products you choose to buy, especially online.
It helps that the FDA regulates tampons that you can buy. So if you are looking at things that are reusable, you have to be a little bit careful because those aren't regulated. So if you're looking for products that are on the shelf in the store, those are FDA regulated.
The DHS encourages parents and school nurses to protect the health of teens by talking to them about the proper use of feminine hygiene products. Cami?